Hello, welcome into the Fantasy Football Academy. You've got Johnny, John, and Blake, and we're coming at you with our starts, sits, and sleepers for week 4. First, let's revisit our starts and sits and sleepers from week 3 and figure out who hit on their picks. For week 3, Zay Flowers was Blake's projection, which was actually the best start that we picked out. Which was a solid pick, but nothing crazy. My sit was Khalil Herbert, who only put up like 2.5 points, and I think hopefully saved a lot of people some heartache. Blake also called out that you should sit Danny Dimes, which was a great call. And then our sleepers were really fun. Blake picked Adam Thielen, who had a huge game. And then I also picked Tutu Atwell, who almost had had 2 or 3 touchdowns that he literally almost got, besides the one he did catch. So those were some great sleeper call-outs by us. So now we're going to get into week 4 and continue giving you guys some great advice on how you can win your league. So let's start with our week 4 starts. Blake, who you got?
Dude, week 4 already? Can you believe that? The season's going so quickly, man. I hate that. I hate looking up and realizing it's already week 4. We've been hot last couple weeks on these picks, especially sleepers, and we were a little cool on the starts last week, so hopefully we can change that around this week. My sleeper was so goddamn fire last week that he's made it my start, and I'm starting Adam Thielen absolutely over most players this week. He's had 23 targets, 18 receptions over the last 2 games. He's just become the focal point of that offense. Jonathan Mingo, there's a lot of talk about trying to get him more involved. He was seeing a lot of snap shares, a lot of targets, but didn't really look that good in those opportunities, and he's banged up. He's got a concussion right now. He's limited in practice this week. We'll see if he plays, but even if he plays, you're fine up Adam Thielen against the Vikings, who last week had one of the most insane. Keenan Allen against that team last week, 18 catches on 20 targets for 215, and him and Thielen both live in the slot. They both eat over the middle of the field. Thielen's been getting some deep targets too, which I liked seeing last game. So I expect Minnesota to be just as vulnerable against Adam Thielen this week. And listen, I don't want to get too bullish on Adam Thielen for the entire season, but this is an absolute must start again in week 4 against the Vikings.
Love the analysis, Blake, honestly.
Well, Dalton did the damage last week and kind of helped Thielen's production. I think we might see Young this week, if I'm not too mistaken. So there might be some type of production difference. Who knows? But I as your point, the Vikings got lit up. They're going to be had through the air. It could definitely happen this week as well. So,
and they're going to score points too. So Carolina's going to have to throw the ball a lot. Even with Bryce Young back, I did some research before with Bryce Young. Thielen was seeing a 90.2% catchable ball rate from Bryce Young. So when Bryce Young was throwing Adam Thielen, he was throwing it accurately, and those targets should be quality targets, obviously, with that matchup. So even with Bryce Young back, I expect him to pop off again.
Nice.
Yeah, I think it's like you've got Shark, and I just don't see Mingo playing much of a factor after getting banged up. I mean, they've been sitting more and more players the week after they're concussed this year. So, and he just hasn't popped off the page when he has been on the field. Thielen's clearly the comfort food there. So I like the call, and I like that. You're not calling him a sleeper. You're like, hey, we're starting this guy.
He's my start of the week, baby. Yep.
Yeah. Over Devontae Adams. No, I'm just kidding.
Maybe not over Tay, but yeah.
Okay, so I will get into my start, and that is Jerry Jeudy. I am, it's no secret, I'm a Jerry Jeudy fan. People know that. I've gone on the record and said it before. And I think that, it's been a tough start to the year with him. Like, he had a hamstring injury that everyone thought was terrible, but he's already been out there. He missed 1 week. He's worked himself playing more and more snaps through week 2 and 3, being more productive each week. And the sports analytics, the sports med doctors will tell you this is about when we should expect the Jerry Jeudy that everybody was so excited for going into this year. So think about Sean Payton and all the crap he has said on the television, this guy's going to want to run it up this week after everyone knows what happened to the Broncos last week. And offense really hasn't been the biggest problem there. Like, Russ has been looking better. He was getting the ball to Sutton a lot, who had a huge game that could have been even bigger if he didn't drop a touchdown and lose 2 fumbles. So I think they're going to be looking to get Jerry Jeudy more involved. They're up against a very suspect Bears defense. I'm in on him this week. I'm starting him if I drafted him in redraft.
Bears are an absolute mess offensively and defensively, so I like that.
Yeah, quality matchup. I maybe wondered if you're a week too soon on the Jeudy comeback, but I like your faith in it. We're both big fans of the player. Obviously, Sutton fumbling twice, dropping that touchdown, maybe puts him in the doghouse a little bit. Russ looks the other way a little bit more this week. Marvin Mims is there. He's looking really good.
Might be the wide receiver 1, right?
I mean, he's got the crazy A-dot with. Yeah, but we'll see what kind of involvement he gets this soon in the season. I think eventually the coaching staff will realize his worth and try and plug him a little bit more. But yeah, I don't know. My thing is there's a lot of question marks on that offense. I don't know if I'm quite as bullish on it for this week. I'd like to maybe wait a week before claiming Judy's back, but I like it nonetheless.
I'm not saying he's back, right? But I'm saying if you drafted him, you got to start either thinking like, am I cutting this guy? Is he like, I'm saying if you have him and you're in any sort of spot where it's in a consideration, this is probably the time to do it. He does play the Jets next week. So it's like, if it's not this week, it might be starting to panic because it's the Jets, then Kansas City, who's been really good, and then Green Bay, but then Kansas City again before a bye. So just looking ahead at his schedule, it is a bit of a gauntlet there, and you'd love to see some affirmation as soon as this week, right? So
let's get it going then. Absolutely.
Yeah, I like Jeudy a lot. You know that. So I haven't given up on him yet, and I think this is hopefully the week that Peyton wants to involve his best player. So okay, now this one I'm actually excited about. The John start, and if you watch this show, and if you know ball, you'll know that this one irks me and Blake a little bit. But get into it, John.
Yeah, no problem. This guy's probably a trap, but
you triggered my trap card.
Listen, if there's any time to start Najee Harris, guys, it's going to be against the Texans. They're probably the worst team fantasy-wise against running backs for the past 2 seasons. They're giving up touchdowns left and right. Najee Harris excels at scoring touchdowns, even though I don't think he's got one on the year so far. But listen, he's got to fall into the end zone eventually. He's got to fall into the end zone eventually. You guys drafted him probably in the 3rd round of most redraft leagues. If you're going to start this guy, it's got to be this week. And if he folds, he's probably riding your bench for the rest of the year. So Najee Harris, he's got to be a start for me, but I understand if you don't want to. It's kind of ugly. I get it.
He was your panic last week, dude.
I know. Listen, I was riding the matchup here. I'm going to be bullying on Houston all year long. All right, that's what I'm going to do.
Okay, you're playing the matchup game. I like it. Yeah, I was even going to give him one more week last week against the matchup he had because it was a good one, but he still did nothing last week. So, I mean, I don't know. If you want to start him this week, I think this is the last straw if he burns you again, but we'll see.
Yeah, I can understand that. I get that from all perspectives.
But I like it. It's bold for sure. It's crazy that it's bold, but
it's bold week 4.
Mm-hmm.
Gross.
Hey, if you had Najee, you did that to yourself at this point. That is my thoughts and feelings. So we're going to get into our week 4 sits. These are going to be some players who you probably almost everybody has on their roster and maybe are getting excited to fire up. But we're going to give you maybe some reasons to think about it, look and see if you've got some better players. So, Blake, do you want us to get into it with your week 4 sit?
Yeah, week 4 sit's going to be Christian Kirk for me. It's a little bit of a trap just because he's had 2 really nice games back to back. I have him in Dynasty. I've been watching those snaps closely. I also have Trevor Lawrence in Dynasty, so I've been watching those games. He's made you sweat the first halves of both of them. The first one, he ended up getting 10 catches, 100 plus yards, and helping you out in PPR. Last week, it was a little different story. Last week, it wasn't so promising. He got a touchdown And other than that, it was a struggle out there against a decently easy matchup in the Texans. They're not as bad against the pass as they are against the run, but they lost Stingley, and they were missing some guys last week. And he's still the thing is he's just not getting depth of target. He's 90th in the league of depth of target. I think he has a 5.7 A-dot right now, which is just brutal. They're only working him on screens, little short ins and curls. He's not beating you over the middle of the field outside of that one deep shot you probably saw in red zone 2 weeks ago. But other than that, he's not doing anything. It's just a lot of bubbles, and that's not going to do it for you, especially against an Atlanta passing defense, which is fourth in the league, fourth best yards allowed and catches allowed to the receiver position. So
really
they're shutting them down. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, Atlanta's really good. They're top 10 in points allowed to the position just because they've given up an extra touchdown than a lot of those like top tier teams. They're a lot better than you would think. So Christian Kirk, don't like the matchup, don't like the way he's involved in the offense. Trevor Lawrence himself is starting to get a little nervous there. I mean, they're already blaming the coordinator. It's like step 2 in the are we panicking on Trevor Lawrence cycle? And I don't know if I'm quite there yet, but it just doesn't look good yet. I'm going to take a step back from Kirk this week and see if you can fit someone else in your lineup.
That's solid. I mean, I understand Trevor Lawrence has kind of been shaky, so production-wise, it trickles down to these wide receivers.
Yeah, I think that kind of comes back to us maybe eating a bit of crow on how excited all three of us were with the Jags offense, right, and what it could be. I don't think they've hit their stride fully yet.
Right.
And then honestly, like, I don't know if they will. Like, I don't know if it doesn't seem like it's like, oh, there's just a little bit of timing or a little rust to shake off. Like, just kind of head scratching. I want to start pointing the finger at Trevor Lawrence a little bit. Like, well, is he really Mahomes like? Will he ever be that kind of off, or is he more of like a Kirk Cousins level, right? Well Kirk Cousins is balling this year, so
absolutely.
That's even getting a little too close.
I think the Jags will turn it around at some point. I just don't think it'll be this week against that Falcons secondary, which is like I said, it's tougher than people think. But yeah,
I mean, put a lot of money in that defense
they
over
did.
the season. Yeah,
and I don't have the names off the top of my head, but they've all played really well.
Bates has been one of those guys, like, just very tough
Bates,
to throw on. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I will get into my week 4 sit. I've been kind of excited about this one because I think this has been the guy to talk about. And you can tell I'm a Broncos fan when I'm telling you to start a Bronco and sit a Dolphin after last week. But it's Devon, don't call me Achan. And I just thought last week in his production was not fluky. It deserved to happen to such a bad team, but I don't think it's repeatable. The Broncos it was one of the worst defensive performances I've ever seen. They weren't trying to tackle. It shouldn't be expected for him to have a similar sort of lack of competition against the Bills defense. One of the stats that I dug up around this was like, there's a lot of concern around his size, obviously a track star, but the only other rookie his size to ever have a game like this was Javid Best, who I kind of consider Javid bust, right? Like, it's not my favorite grouping. It's a little bit of like, it shows you this was an outlier. That guy didn't go on to have the craziest fantasy football career of all time or anything like that. So I think when you combine all that with the fact that, like, Mostert looks so good too, and is their number one. He has the relationship with Mike Daniels. Like, I get that Achan just dropped 50, and you probably spent a ton of your fab or your first waiver pick, and you're excited to hopefully replicate that. Like, wait a week. If I'm wrong, come and smack me around. But I think I'm giving you the best advice you can take is if you had someone else who is, a suitable replacement, lean on someone who might get some more volume and play a higher percentage of snaps than Achan.
200 touchdowns. I'm sorry, 200 touchdowns. 200 yards, 4 touchdowns for for a running back on his first, career start. Well, not start, but his first career game is pretty great. And obviously that's a huge outlier, right? That's not going to be repeated. That might actually be his best fantasy output for its entire career, for all we know. That's going to be pretty hard to repeat. So yeah, it's definitely an outlier, and I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Yeah, a lot of the outlier stats with a player like A-Chain exist because those guys just don't get drafted. I mean, he's talented enough to get drafted where he was drafted. That's a lot of people knocked him in rookie drafts coming out of college, but I mean, he's passed the eye test every step of the way. I'm gonna stop sleeping on A-Chain. I do agree that I don't think I'm starting him every week with full confidence. Like I think that he's not gonna put up 15 and 4 every week. They're not going to be up 70-10 where they're using him that much. Like Mostert is still the guy there. I think you're starting him over a lot of players this week just because the running back position is thin and there's injuries and stuff. But I think you should temper your expectations, as Johnny said. And if you can afford to, I mean, if you have a wealth of running backs and you can sit him, I don't think it's the worst play.
Fair.
Yeah, like I have a league where I have like Kamara, Walker, and Bijan Robinson, and I would probably have those. Obviously, those guys are RB1s, right? But it's just I think that's where the level of hype that people might be expecting is just to plug and play this guy for 50 points, and I'd like to see a little more consistency, right? So, but I will give you that he does. I'm a big believer in the eye test. I think the guy looks great. I think he could have a really good career. It could happen very soon. But I just don't know if next week is the week against the Bills defense. And a lot of times this happens where you get your expectations so high and they're going to come back to earth. So I'm going to boldly pick that side for this week and live if I'm wrong. But I've been pretty on fire with most of my sits all year. So
been good. It's spicy, dude. It is a spicy take. I love it. I love it, man.
And been meaning to show this little wine for your fantasy football aficionado. You know what I'm saying?
A little alcohol to clear the mind. I got.
Well, I'm still very clear over here. I'm just wanted to let you guys know I'm a sophisticated gentleman while I'm doing all this. You know what I mean? I got the wedding ring. I got the glasses. Where are your other fancy A-lists at? All right, I'm just kidding.
You just gotta put the record player on. That's all you're missing.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, week 4 sit for you, John. Get into it, brother.
Yeah, man. Let's just talk Joe Mixon now. He actually got into the end zone. He had a decent fantasy production last week. But they're playing the Tennessee. They've been really stingy against fantasy running backs. And this is the guy that I'm looking to fade a little bit because his entire Bengals offense looks out of whack. Joe Burrow looks like he's been out of whack. He's been completing almost 50% of his passes. So I don't know. There's going to be some check downs in this game. I expect him to catch 3 or 4 balls for 14 yards, as he always does. And he's not going to get into the end zone because Tennessee's super stingy. And he's a fade altogether for me this week. I'd be starting guys like Zach Moss and Devon A-Chain. How do you pronounce his name? A-Chan. A-Chan. Listen, it's week 4, guys. I mean, this guy could have told us way sooner how to pronounce his name. A-Chan. So Devon A-Chan and Zach Moss, I'm definitely looking to start over even Joe Mixon this week. And I know that's hard to say because you drafted Joe Mixon a lot earlier than those guys. But if you could fade this matchup, it's something I'm looking forward to. So.
Yeah, I hate the matchup for sure. Mixon he just looks like a jag all the time. He honestly, in the first half of last game, I saw him running in between the tackles. He looked a little bit fresher than he did. I remember him looking last year.
The offense just looks sluggish. It just looks
the whole
bad.
offense looks sluggish, and because Burrow looks bad, it almost makes me a little if you need 10, 12 points from your RB1 or 2, I say go ahead and start Mixon just because
he's got a nice floor.
I feel like they're gonna have to lean on him a little bit more than they have in the last couple of years. I think the volume is definitely still there. It's a sneaky start, honestly, for me. But I don't, even with the matchup. But I don't fault you for wanting to sit him and try and get someone like Zach Moss in there. The matchup's better. Zach Moss is getting 90+% of the snaps there.
They're riding him
over him, but I don't necessarily hate Mixon as much as you do this week.
So I would sit A-Chan and I would start Mixon personally.
Fair.
And I mean, I agree that Tennessee defense has been stingy against running backs as all get out. But Jerome, just a guy forward, scored 19 points against them when I think everybody said that last week, right? Hey, this isn't, you picked him up. It's not the week to start him. He got a touchdown, right? Like,
You got 2.
That's kind of, Joe had a 5 touchdown game, right? So I'll just say I think this is a spicy take, and that's great. You know what I mean? But I wouldn't want to be on the wrong side of this one because, like, he is to me a bell cow. And I liked the cut he made last night to get his touchdown. I thought it was actually a really strong run. And I'm not a full Mixon fader like you guys are. In Dynasty, totally, because I think, like, he's going to be in, like, jail next year by this time or something like that. But this year, this week, if you drafted him and he's not in jail, you start this guy. But
in the league we're in, I have Joe Mixon. I have to start him. I have no choice to start him.
Okay.
But, there could be a rare circumstance where somebody can sit him. And Ford, to your credit, did score 19 points, but, 80% of his fantasy points were touchdowns. So if, Joe Mixon doesn't get in the end zone, this Bengals offense sluggish, it could be a bad week for him. I could see it leaning either way, honestly.
That is how Joe Mixon has scored his monster points, though, in the past. Is exactly how Ford beat them last week, which was wheel routes out of the backfield, catching passes in the end zone. Like, that's Mixon's specialty. That's how he scored 55 points in week 5 last year. Like, Ford averaged 2.5 yards per carry in that game, which I expect Mixon to be around maybe up at 3.2 yards a carry, but I could see him catching a couple balls for more than 14 yards, maybe getting that end zone. So we'll see. It'll be interesting to look back at it.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, well, let's get into sleepers and wrap up here for week 4. So I'll go first with mine because I'm really excited about this guy. I think this is basically going to be his coming out party. It's going to help kind of beat the stigma that rookie tight ends can't produce. Sam Laporte has already kind of smashed that. I was really high on him coming into this year. But I think Luke Musgrave is going to have a big game tomorrow night on Thursday. Detroit is 32nd in the league against tight ends out of 32 teams. He's got a really good snap share, has since training camp. They've been saying this is our guy, and I think he's amazing. He was the most athletic out of any of the tight ends from the 23 class, and so when you've got a guy like him with that kind of Kincaid-esque profile who can line up in the slot, but is also playing in line and getting all those snaps, quietly got 8 targets last week. He's about to bust, in my opinion, or in a good way, about to blow up, right? And couple extra points here. Like, this guy's the son of Bill Musgrave. That means he grew up around ball. Like, this guy knows ball. His family knows ball. I love that. And I think with Watson coming in, with how Love has played, airing it out to the perimeter, that would probably be the defensive game plan coming in for Detroit. And I expect them to sort of funnel down to Musgrave a little more tomorrow night. And I think this will be his coming out party. He's only rostered in 34% of leagues, but I'm going to start him over a guy like Hunter Henry in the league where I have Hunter Henry. So really excited about him. Think he's my sleeper for the week.
Nice.
Yeah,
I could see it.
I saw some stat. Is he first in targets right now for tight ends, or is he first in depth of yards per target?
That might be what it is, ADOT, but it's not targets. He's outside the top 10. But the thing I like is, like I said, quietly 8 targets last week, kind of getting more and more involved in the offense. But that was one of my only things where I'm like, I think this probably why he's not more rostered is he's not top 10 in targets. He hasn't had a game, I don't think, over like 60 yards yet. Or maybe he has, but he hasn't really popped off too much yet. But the usage has been good. The athleticism's there. He only played like 1 year or one or a couple games last year at Oregon State before he had a knee injury that you can tell he's fully recovered from. But in those games, he was going crazy. He was like 40% of the offense he was the only guy getting the ball. And I think you can still see a lot of fluidity in him. And I'm excited for him long term. I think it could be his coming out party tomorrow. So anyways, let us get into John's week 4 sleeper.
Yeah. So today we're gonna be putting Elijah Moore as our sleeper this week. He's going against Baltimore. He went 9 for 9 for 45 yards. Not ideally like the best yardage track record for 9 targets, but I think this offense, the Browns, is slowly starting to change now that Nick Chubb is out of the picture. It's coming a little more passing, and we're starting to see more volume come out of this passing game from Watson. Elijah Moore works pretty close to the line of scrimmage. He's pretty good in PPR formats. The over/under, I believe, is 40.5 points, which is pretty solid for a divisional matchup. So if we can get 8 or 9 targets, and I would even settle for 7, and this guy can come out and catch about 80 yards, potentially get a touchdown, I would slam dunk this. He's definitely a good flex play this week, especially in PPR. But if you're playing in half PPR and no PPR, then I would probably fade this guy. But majority of people are playing at least half PPR, so.
Yeah, 9 targets in week 2 also, and 7 targets in week 1. He would have had a big week 2 if Deshaun Watson had his timing not been as impacted by that Steelers pass rush.
Right.
TJ Watt was all over him on just like seemingly just like on every time he tried to throw it to Moore. I was watching that game. The targets are there. They like to run their offense through Cooper, and it seems like they're trying to get more involved at a similar pace to take some pressure off Cooper. I like that sleeper. We'll see. The Deshaun looked better last week, so hopefully it'll come around and it'll start clicking for those two.
Yeah.
Dude, that Eli's A. terrifies me. Like the fact that they're not getting him involved in downfield work at all, and that not even just the A. It's 9 catches for 54 yards. Like that's scary to me. I'm sorry, I'll say it, but I do hope. And I think he's got the talent where he could pull it together. I'm not sure if they're using him right or if they're maybe trying to make you think he is going to play one role. But I hope he does have a big week.
Yeah, this is kind of what I expected for him, honestly, in the offseason, for him to work really close to the line of scrimmage. So it's nothing. It's not really a surprise to me, to be honest.
Yeah, I guess the bigger surprise, and that's my point, not even the A. It's the fact that he only converted those into like 5 or 6 yards a catch, right? Or whatever that is, 9 times 7, maybe. Okay. Week 4 sleeper. This is probably the one that everybody's the most excited about. The back-to-back sleeper champ. My man told you to start Josh Reynolds in week 1. He told you to fire up Nico Collins in week 2. He just told you to fire up Adam Thielen in week 3. Okay? I mean, this guy don't miss when it comes to picking sleepers. These are just dart throws, my guy. Now, personally, I don't think this one's as much of a dart throw. I think everybody should be almost starting this guy. I told him he should be a starter. But Blake insists that you're sleeping on this guy. Everybody needs to stop sleeping, and this is the week to start. Give us your week 4 sleeper, Blake.
Jacoby Myers. I've been on fire. You got to stop sleeping on my sleepers. My sleeper, Jacoby Myers, this week. He's a sleeper just because he's still only owned in 77% of leagues, and he's only rostered right now in 30% of those leagues. So he's still on a lot of people's benches. He's got the Chargers this week, who are by far the best matchup, most lucrative matchup for wide receivers in fantasy right now. They've given up 39.5 points per game to the position. I mean, they're just getting burned. That J.C. Jackson signing last year, they gave him all the money. He was a healthy scratch last week, and they had no answers behind him. I mean, their secondary is just in shambles right now. Jacoby Myers has a 31.4% target share in the 2 games that he's played and a 45.5% target rate. That means that he's hitting the ball on almost half of his routes. That's insane, right? It's crazy. And he's looked good. He's looked really, really good. He looks fluid. His routes are there. He's always been a decent player. I just think that there was the knocks around the red zone with his time in New England. But I think we can put the blame on Mac Jones there, right? We've seen Mac Jones now for 3 years, and he doesn't look very good. Jacoby Myers looks good, and he's got 3 targets inside the red zone already this year and has caught 2 touchdowns. So I think it's pretty clear that Jacoby Myers is the player that maybe the people that were high on him thought he was, and is better than the player that the people who weren't thought he was. So I like Jacoby Myers this week to continue my reign of sleeper of the week. Stay tuned throughout the season. I'm going to keep firing these up. Jacoby Myers got to be in your lineup this week.
So I think Jacoby, like I have a theory that this guy has been getting like advice or really under the guidance of Devontae Adams because like I see it in the way he's been running his routes a little more nuanced. He looks like a different player to me personally from last year. He wasn't someone I'd watched him play a lot, didn't think he was bad, but like he's doing exactly what Adams did. Adams didn't break into the league. Adams had some drop issues, but once he figured it out, this guy is a artist at his craft, and I think you're starting to see some of that artistry with Jacoby Myers. I really like him. That's why I said I don't think he should be a sleeper. I think like they've almost got 2 Devontae Adams on that team at this point. But love the pick.
Myers,
guys, that's it.
Myers, sorry to interrupt, but Myers, he was always a crisp route runner, but this year it looks like additional. Like so something's going on to propel this guy forward. So he does look crisp.
Yeah. Well, guys, that's it for us this week. We're going to be tracking our hits and misses all year long, so we're holding ourselves accountable, and we know we're helping you guys because we're hitting way more than we're missing. So we're looking forward to seeing how these pan out for you. Thank you for watching. Drop a like, a comment, ask us any advice you have. Subscribe. It helps us grow our platform and continue to make great content like this. So thank you guys and have a great rest of your fantasy football season.